Hi everyone, so today we're going to talk about what happens when you have this story, you have finally finished, you've got this first draft, and it's terrible. So instead of editing, you're basically writing the entire story, which is exactly what happened to me. So if you guys have been following me, or if you know anything about me, I was writing a story which I called Willow's Story, and it was this fantasy novel set in this basically parallel universe to Earth, and I finished the draft. And then I went back through the draft, and that's when everything just kind of went down south. So when I started the editing process, I basically went through each chapter at a time, and I did shorthand notes of what happens in each chapter. That way I could kind of see the bigger picture. Now, the problem was that when I wrote my story, which I called Willow's Story for the longest time, I pantsed it. And if you don't know what that means I just kind of flew by the seat of my pants and just kind of wrote whatever. And you know, while some people can do it, and I've done that most of my writing career, if you want to call it a writing career, the writing time I've spent writing, whatever. Yeah, it's worked out well for me. If you want to keep things in a first draft, never going to actually publish it stage, absolutely. But whenever it comes to editing and having something that's polished, good, ready to send to an agent to query or to be self-published, you gotta put a little bit of work into it via an outline. Outlines, my friends, are so important, and I wish I had realized that before I finished the draft, but no. I literally was like, all right, let me just get done with this book. And so by the end of the story, I had this idea, and it was going to be great, like this process of how things were going to work for the main character and the different things she would encounter. And then that went all to hell, literally, because I can't reveal that piece of information, but it was so bad. And I just kept going through the end, and this idea had 7 different parts. Well, I couldn't even distinguish what part was what. I was like, okay, what was I even writing about? I had to go back to the very beginning when I was doing the research phase, which I did research, I just didn't outline. And it was just a complete mess. So we kind of are doing this backwards. We've talked about the end of the story. Now let's talk about the beginning of my story, which was amateurish at best. Now, mind you, I was just kind of getting to the swing of things. I'll give myself some slack for that. But I mean, come on, Brittany. I could have done so much better than that. It was horrible. I even wrote when I was going through the chapter outlines, have Evelyn read this, because to me, it just seems really childish. And Evelyn's my best friend, so when she was kind of looking over my outline, I wanted her to see that and kind of give some feedback what she thought. But it was very amateurish. I had these ideas that you would find in probably like a 1st or 2nd grade book, but not in an actual chapter book, like something someone's gonna read, fantasy, young adult. None of it belonged. On top of the fact, my very first paragraph, I don't know. I think because I love Frankenstein, I thought I was going to do like an epistolary at the beginning. It was a great idea, and then it wasn't executed, and it was terrible. I mean, again, I just wanted to get words on the page to get into the flow of things, but going back and looking at it, trash. Complete trash. Had to go. My rewrite, it's gone. Like, none of that exists because it was not good. It was bad material. Now, let's talk about the middle of the book. Now, by the time I got to the middle, things were okay. You know, I kind of knew what I was doing the first draft. At least I thought I did. I knew the fantastical elements that I wanted to incorporate. I had some training scenes. So overall, let's start with the training scenes. The training scenes were also not good. I mean, they were like okay, but they could definitely be worked on. They were very short to the point. They weren't fluffed out. Not that they needed to be fluffed out, but they needed more to it. They needed more depth, more what happens. I mean, you're training. There's all these different things that should be happening, and I had nothing. Like, I literally, it was just so simple, it was ridiculous. And it's like my fight scenes. I'm not the type of person to write fight scenes. It's not the thing I like. I like romance scenes, not fight scenes. So the training scene kind of fell into that fighting scene category, and that had to be worked on quite a bit, even though I have to admit in this editing rewrite phase, I'm sorry, I still haven't really done that, but that's okay. That can be added later. At least I got the words on the page. But at least I also acknowledge that the training scenes, they're not that great. Okay, so now we've talked about the novel in its entirety, all the things that did not work in the first draft. Now, when I went to rewrite, I was completely devastated. I was like, I can't use this. This is trash. I have so many incomplete ideas. I had no outline. I don't even have a title for this book. Like, it's a problem. And I kept incorporating a bunch of different, I was incorporating too much. I had all these different ideas, and I'm not even going to tell you all of them, but there was too much going on. I needed to have a few plot lines, not all the plot lines. And I was really overwhelmed when I kind of looked at it, and I tore it bit by bit, chapter by chapter. But I had to come to my senses because I have literally written 3 or 4 different drafts of a novel similar to this one. They're all taking place in the same world. They're just different bits and pieces, different creatures essentially. And I'm tired of just writing drafts. Like, you have to realize as an author, the first draft is always going to pretty much be complete garbage. It's the editing process that polishes it, that makes it better. It's not something you can do all in one take. I mean, Stephen King, maybe he can, but he's been doing this for so long, he doesn't even count. And that goes for other authors who have been authors for a long time. They know their process, how to get things done. That's awesome for them. They probably do it in like 1 or 2 goes, and they're like, oh, this is good. Now, for first-time authors, novel authors, no. It is a freaking work in progress, and let me tell you, I had to completely throw out my outline. Yeah, I'm from the South, can't you tell? But I had to tell myself, you know, you've done this before, you can do it, you're great at writing research papers, you can organize. That's all you have to do is organize. So I actually sat down with pieces of paper and wrote out the entire outline with new things I wanted to incorporate. Like if something was important that needed to go in that chapter, I wrote it down. That way I wouldn't just randomly throw things in. But mind you, now I'm going through this process, that is kind of happening, but I'm keeping up with an outline, which I totally recommend. If you are writing, have an outline. That way you know what's going on. You can refer back to it without reading the entire story because nobody's got time for that. And it helps tremendously. So basically that's the story of how my editing process ended up being a redraft process. And I think it's important that other writers know you're not alone. It's not easy to be a writer at all. It takes a lot of time and dedication, and you have to keep pushing yourself. You have to put words on the page every day. You have to keep working at it, because when I started my story the very first time, it was complete garbage. It was amateurish, childish at best. But now it's a lot better. It's a process. It takes so much time and effort, and that's kind of what goes into being a writer. You have to be able to get those traits and adapt into them and let them change you as a person, because if you don't adapt and change, you're never going to make it. So that's all I got to say about that. And I hope somebody can relate to, my woes of writing my novel. And if you can, let's talk. Tell me, how has it gone for you? Did you go to edit your story and have to rewrite it? Or was that just me? Because it was probably just me. Anyways, guys, that's all for today, and I will see you